Today, inshallah, we are going to complete our talk about the consumer equilibrium using the indifference scale theory. In the last two classes, we said that the indifference curve represents the consumer willingness to consume something, and explains the total utility obtained when the consumer consumes different bundles of goods. So the indifference curve represents the consumer willingness to consume something, and the budget line represents the ability to buy something, which can be derived from the consumer income and the prices of the prices of X and Y. All right. In the last class, we said that if we have, or we can derive the budget line from using the income and the prices. So let us assume that the consumer's income equals $200, and the price period of X equals $50, and the price period of Y equals $10 or $20. Okay, خليه هيك. Now let's derive the budget line. To derive the budget line, we said that we have to calculate the quantity consumed of X when we consume 0 units of Y. So a quantity of X equals income over the price of X. So income, your 200 over price of X 50 equals 4 units. And 0 from Y, because in this case the consumer uses his income or her income to buy only X, right? So, and let's assume that the consumer will allocate his income to buy only Y. In this case, the QY equals income over the price of Y equals 200 over 10 equals 20 units. So, derive the budget line. To derive the budget line here, quantity of X and the quantity of Y. Quantity of X, let's assume 2, 4, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the quantity consumed of Y, let us assume 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. That's it. The budget line can be shown or can be derived here at X, quantity of X equals 4, and the quantity of Y equals 20 units. If we connect these points here, we'll reach to the budget line. This is the budget line here. We said also that the budget line is sensitive to the consumer's income and the change in the prices of X and Y, which means what will happen to the budget line if the consumer's income goes up or goes down, and what will happen to the budget line if the price of X goes up or goes down, if the price of Y changes, went down or increases. So let us assume that the consumer's income goes up or increased to or declined to $100, and the price of X, price of Y remains constant. This is the second case here. Price of X remains constant at 50. Price of Y remains constant at 10. What will happen to the budget line here? So we have a new case. So the price, we have to calculate a new X, a new quantity consumed of X. which equals, here we're talking about a new. So this is the new here, a new situation. Income is a new. We have a new income, a new price of X, and the new price of Y. طبعا assuming no change in the prices. تمام? So here quantity of X in U, the new case, equals I over price of X in U, which equals 100 over 50 equals 2 units. But what about the new quantity consumed divide? Equals, here we're talking about the new income in U over price of X in U, Y in U. How much is it? 100 over 10 equals 10. So let's derive the new quantity consumed, derive the new budget line. The first case, where X here declined to 2 and the quantity Y declined to 10. So let's connect these points here. We will we'll reach to a new budget line. Here we have a new budget line. Inside shifting or leftward shifting in the budget line due to parallel to the previous one. Parallel to the previous one, the original. So this is the budget line 2 here. The slope remains constant, which means how much is the slope, how much was the slope before it changing in the consumer income. At the original consumer income, how much was the slope? Let us calculate the slope of budget line 1 equals مقابل عن مجاور. صح؟ 20 over 4 طبعا بالنيجاتيف لأنه هذا نيجاتيف سلوب. بالابسوليوت فاليو equals 5. هذا minus 5 بالابسوليوت value equals 5. Right? What about the new slope or the slope for the new budget line? Budget line 2. The slope of the budget line 2 equals 10 over 2. Negative slope equals minus 5 and the absolute value equals 5. Which means that, what does this mean? This means as the consumer's income changes or goes down, the budget line shifts left with the same slope. No changes in the slope of the budget line due to the change in the consumer income. Right? تمام? تمام. Then هذا negative slope, هذا said minus 5. Here we're talking about the slope of the budget line remains constant at or when the consumer's income goes down or goes up as well. Let us assume that the consumer's income goes up, changed from 200 to 300. What will happen? The budget line will shift right. Parallel to the previous one, the slope remains constant. Right? So any changes in the consumer income will not change the slope of the budget line. All right? But what will happen if the price of X decline? Let us assume that here we're talking, we have the original or the initial data, the original data, and we have derived the budget line. And the budget line was as follows. Here we have the original data, the initial data. The consumer's income equals 200. The price of X, 50. The price of Y is 10. We have derived the budget line. So the budget line was quantity Y here and quantity X. Quantity consumed of X was 4. Okay, a quantity of X was 4, and the quantity Y was 20 units. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. The budget line was, this is the budget line one. Now, the assumption is the consumer income remains constant at 100. Here we're talking about a new situation. A new situation. The consumer's income remains constant. This is the old here. The consumer income remains constant at what? 200. The price of X increased. Price of X increased from 50 to 60. And the price of Y remains constant at 10. Price of Y remains constant at 10. What will happen to the budget line? We have to deal with this case as the previous. So we have to calculate, we have to deal with it as a separate case. So we have to calculate the new quantity of X, new quantity of Y, and then derive the new budget line. So let's derive the new budget line. You're talking about the new budget line. To derive and draw the new budget line, we have to calculate the new QX. You're talking about a new quantity consumed. X equals I over PX. You're talking about a new. All right? So, quantity of X equals, how much is the consumer's income? 200. Over $60. The price per quantity of X, how much is it? Sorry, 3.3. This is the new quantity of X. What about the new quantity of Y? So here, it should be here. The quantity consumed of X, 3.3. What about the quantity consumed of Y? In U, QY, in U, equals income over the price of Y. You're talking about a new. 200 over 10 equals 20, which means we still right at this point here. We have a new budget line. We have what do you see? Inside shifting of the budget line toward X. صح؟ بس X اللي تغير هذا. طيب, what about the slope here? Then the change, increasing in the price of X. The price of X was $50 and it has increased to $60, which means that the price of X becomes more expensive. The consumer, right? So his ability to buy of X will go down, which means as the price of X goes up, the quantity purchased of X goes down. هذا fits مع demand theory. مظبوط؟ Then هايو the quantity consumed of X can for قديش 3.3 due to the change in price, due to the increasing the price of X. طيب, if the price of X goes up, this is the budget line 2 here. What about the slope? The initial slope was -5, اللي هو 5 في absolute value. The initial slope of budget line 1 was 5, the absolute value. minus 5, the absolute value equals 5. Calculate the new slope of the budget line. Slope of budget line 2 equals 20 over 3.3, the absolute value, صح? And the 3.3. So equals 20 over 3.3 بالنيجاتيف side, the absolute value increased or decreased? Increased. قديش صارت؟ 6.6 هيك؟ 6%. اوكي. هذا بالماينس بالابسوليوت فاليو تبعه 6.06. So واضح انه السلوب كل ما بتيجي هيك كل ما السلوب ايش بصير فيه؟ بزيد. صح؟ مزبوط؟ تمام؟ طيب what will happen if the price of X goes down? Ceteris paribus means all other variables remain constant without the changes. شو اللي بصير؟ So here let us assume that the consumer's income remains constant. The price of X goes down to 25. And the price of Y remains constant at 10. What will happen to the budget line? Here is the original budget line. The original budget line here, QX, QY, here's 4. And the 20. This is the budget line number 1, the original budget line. Here, according to our assumption, is or that the consumer's income remains constant, fixed. The price of X has declined to 25, and the price of Y remains constant at 10. The question, what will happen to the budget line? As the price of X goes down, from 50 to 25, what will happen to the budget line? As the price of X goes down, what will happen? The quantity consumed of X will go up, which means that we will be able to buy more of X. What about Y? Unchanged, because the price of Y remains constant, right? So here, the new quantity of X, here we are talking about the new situation. Quantity of X equals 200 over the price of X, 25, equals how much? 8. Quantum Y, the new, equals 200 over 10 equals 20. So we have a new budget line with a change, or with increasing in the quantum X. Here, the new quantum X equals 8, and the quantum Y equals 20, the same amount. All right? تمام? So here we have a rightward shifting movement of the budget line toward X, outside toward X. All right? What will happen if the price of Y changes and ceteris paribus? Which means, what will happen to the slope here? Decline, because here the original slope equals 20 over 4, 5, the absolute value. A movement of the budget line, this is budget line 2 here. The slope will be 20 over 8. Exactly, 2.5. What will happen if the price of Y, what will happen here if the price of Y, price of the consumer's income remains constant at 200, and the price of X remains constant at 50. So here the assumption is the price of X and has not changed, and the quantity Y, the price of Y increased from 10 to 200 to 20. What will happen? We have a new situation. This is the original situation. The budget line, here the quantity consumed in the original situation, budget line 1. The quantity consumed of X equals 4, the quantity consumed of Y equals 20. Now we have a new situation, which is I, price of X, unchanged, and the price of Y increased to 10. What will happen? Here we have a new situation. So here we can say that we have to calculate the new quantity of X and the new quantity of Y. So the new quantity of X equals 200 over 50 equals how much? 4. So this is the new quantity consumed of X. What about Y? The new quantity of Y, QY, equals 200 over 20 equals 10. So the quantity Y, quantity of X remains constant at 4, and the quantity Y decreased to 10. Might be here. صح? So here we have a new budget line. Budget line 2. This is the new budget line. What will happen to the slope here? It was 20 over 4 and 2.5 here, right? تمام? What will happen if the price of X and the price of Y changed and the consumer's income remains constant? Any changes in the prices, either in the prices or the consumer's income, will make some changes in the budget line, either the slope or the location of the budget line. تمام؟ قلنا مين اللي بحرك اللوكيشن؟ مين اللي بخلي اللوكيشن either to go left side or right side? The change in the consumer's income. صح؟ بس مين بيأثر على السلوب؟ الانكم، التشينج ان انكم عمل افكتس على مين؟ على اللوكيشن تبع البادجت لاين، صح؟ نقلوا either right side or left side، مظبوط؟ بس مين اللي عمل تشينجز في السلوب؟ التشينج في البرايسز، either في البرايس of X or price of Y. تمام؟ طيب sometimes consumers' income remains constant. The price of X, I will assume that the price of X increases. Price of Y increases as well. The ability to purchase, شو بصير فيه؟ Exactly, definitely, because here we as a consumer, you receive the same income, but the prices go up or went up. Your ability to buy will go down. So the budget line will go down, will shift left or shifts left. Let us assume here. So here the original situation, the consumer's income equals 200, the price of X equals 50, the price of Y equals 10. Now, according to our assumption, or we will assume that the consumer's income remains constant at 200, the price of X goes up or went up to 75. بمعنى في عندي increasing by 50%. The price is increased by 50%, the price of X. And the price of Y, let us assume it increased also by 50%. What will happen to the budget line? We have to calculate the new quantity of X and the new quantity of Y. So the new quantity of X will be, here we are talking about the new situation. This is the original here. The new quantity of x equals 200 over 75. How much is it? حد يعمل لها calculation. 2.6. Well, sorry, this is here a quantity of x 2.6. What about the quantity of y here? 200 over 15. How much is it? 13.3 units. So this will be here 2.6 and 13.3. were parallel because the changes were 50%. هيجي parallel. عارفين ليش؟ لأنه هذا زاد ب 50 increased by 50% وهذا increased by 50%. صح؟ إذا هنا في عندنا decreasing in the quantity, the budget line, or the budget line shifts left. Sometimes the price of X goes up and the price of Y goes down. What will happen here? راح نيجي هيك. يعني sometimes this is the original situation, QX and QY here. And this is the original situation, 4 and 20. Let us assume that the price of X increased and the price of Y goes down or went down. What will happen? In this case, the quantity purchase of X will go down. As the price of X goes up, the quantity consumed of X go down. So as the price of X goes up, the quantity consumed of X go down or goes down. What about if the price of Y goes down or went down, the quantity of Y increased? So the quantity of Y will increase and the quantity of X, the quantity of Y, yes, increased and the quantity of X goes down. هيا هذا بتنزل وهذا بتزيد صح؟ So هذا زاد هيك وهذا نقص. This depends on the magnitudes of a change in the prices of X and the prices of Y. All right? تمام؟ فاهمين؟ Let's go to the consumer equilibrium. Depends. يعني قد يكون changes جاي عندي هيك شوفي بإنه يكون عندي هذا هيك ممكن يجي هيك يعني ممكن يجي هيك ها بمعنى هذا في عندي decreasing صار by 20% وهذا decreased by 70%. صح؟ ممكن يجي increasing يصير هيك. نعم. Steeper means higher slope. Flatter means lower slope. يعني steeper or flatter, let's explain the point here. Let's explain the point here. Steeper means this curve has higher slope. يعني which has higher slope, steeper, this or that? Number one, or this. Number one is the flatter. Number two is the steeper. Steeper means it has a higher slope. Let's calculate the slope here. طبعا انحدار أكثر صحيح تمام. BL1 is ماله flatter. BL2 is steeper. steeper means أكثر انحدار. الميل تبعه أكثر. It has a higher, larger slope. Okay? Let's go to the budget line formula. Let's derive the budget line formula. And then we will go to the consumer equilibrium using the indifference curve and the budget line. So let's go to the budget line formula. Budget line formula or equation. As you know, that the second condition of the consumer equilibrium was, or the second order condition was, income equals the price of X times the QX plus price of Y times the QY. فاكرينه؟ تمام. Now, if we have the following budget line, 4 and 20, quantum Y, quantum X. في الexample, the last example اللي خدناه. We assume that the consumer's income was how much? 200, I think. Price of X was 50, and the price of Y was how much? 10. The question is, we know that the consumer can allocate his income to buy two products, X and Y. And definitely we know that if he wants to buy only X, how many units of X can he buy? 4 units. If he wants or tends to allocate his income to buy only Y, he can buy 20 units only, right? But in general, the consumer will allocate his income to buy different goods, different products. The question is, if he decided to buy 7 units of X, how many of Y? How many units of X can he buy? If he tends to buy 5 units, 3 units of X, how many units of Y can he buy? This is a major question here, right? To answer this question, we have the budget line formula. تمام? We have the budget line formula. So to answer this question, we have the budget line formula. So let's derive the budget line formula. The budget line formula the slope is part of the formula. تمام? But the major, or to derive the budget line formula, we have to derive it from this major function or main function. تمام؟ بدي اخلي كيو واي لحالها اشقة من هذا. ايش بتساوي؟ بمعنى انه we have the budget line here. QY, QX. لو عندي QX is known, set 3. How much is the QY? So I have to calculate the QY. تمام? We are gonna calculate QY. So from this function or this formula, خلوا لي هذا عشقة لحاله. بدي اجيب QY لحالها. كيف بدي اجيب QY لحالها؟ ثبت هذا هيك بصير عندنا price of Y times QY equals income minus هذا الجزء part PX PX في QX, right? صح؟ عشان اطلع QY لحالها قسم على كله على price of Y. صح؟ So هذا هيك over بي واي، وهذا over بي واي، وهذا كله over بي واي. صح؟ إذا مصفي عندي هذا بروح مع هذا، بصير عندنا كيو واي equals income over the price of y minus price of x over py كله في qx. This is the budget line formula. This is the budget line formula. هذا هي budget line formula. Now, let's come back quickly to the last example. The last example. In the last example, we assume that the consumer's income was $200. Price of X was how much? $50. And the price of Y equals $10. The question is derive the budget line formula. Derive, بقول هيك, derive the budget line formula. To derive the budget line formula, let's before draw the budget line. Let's draw the budget line. The question is derive the budget line. Derive and draw the budget line, number one. Number two, derive the budget line formula. تمام؟ إذن الفirst بقول لي derive the budget line. Derive and draw the budget line. بلاش الفورمولا، خلي لي number two. Derive and draw the budget line. قلنا to derive the budget line بنقول budget line QX equals the price, the consumer's income over the price of X equals 200 over 50 equals 4. QY equals income over the price of Y equals 200 over 10 equals 20. And so here we have QX, QY, and this is here 4 and the 20. This is what? This is the budget line. All right? Number two, derive the budget line formula. بدي معادلة خط الميزانية. Derive number two here. Derive the budget line formula. How can we derive the budget line formula? We have to write this formula here. تمام؟ easier انه تكتبي هذا الفورمولا ومنها تشتقي الكوانت واي، صح؟ لانه هذا حتروحي عايمه. مظبوط ولا لا؟ بس جبتيها عند كيو اكس ايكوال 0. راح تجربي هالجيت، خلينا نشوف. You have to use this formula اللي جبناها من وين؟ جبناها من هذا. تمام. So quantum y here equals I over py minus price of x over price of y times qx. So qy in this case, qy equals I is how much? 200 over the price of y, 10, minus price of x over the price of y, 50 over 10 times qx. So qy equals 20 minus 5qx. This is the budget line formula. تمام؟ هذا البادجت لاين formula which helps us to calculate the quantity of y when a quantity of x is known. بمعنى here if the quantity of x equals 3, how much is the quantity of y? We have to use the formula here. So the question is number 3. This is number 2. Number 3. If the quantity of y of x equals 3 units. How much calculate the quantity of y? Which means if the consumer decided to buy 3 units of x, how many units of y can he buy? So qy equals 20 minus 5 times the quantity of x at 3. So quantity of y equals 20 minus 15 equals 5. إذا هنا بدي يشتري قديش؟ 5. طب لو بدي يشتري 2 قديش بده يشتري؟ حيشتري أعلى. صح؟ راح يشتري 10. طب لو بدي يشتري 4 قديش راح يشتري منها؟ 0. Hey, try it. If the consumer tends to buy 4 units of X, how many units of Y he will buy? 0. 20 minus 20. 0. That's it. So the formula helps us to calculate quantity of Y when we know the amount of Y. And vice versa. We can, if we have the value of X, of Y, 10. How many units of X we can calculate it as well. مظبوط؟ صح؟ طيب, what do you see in the formula here? 20 is the intercept. هي وين بيتقاطع هذا؟ هي وين تقاطعوا؟ وين intercept؟ الكروس اللوكيشن هي 20. تمام؟ السلوب قديش؟ هي. هذا لو انا اعطيتك البادجت لاين هيك. Let us assume انه البادجت لاين quant y quant x واعطيتك هذا هيك 7 and 21. قلت لك derive the budget line formula. حتقولي لي QY equals 21 minus slope 21 over 7 over 7 له 3 quantum x. That's it. طب الفورمولا هنا هيك ارجعوا لي I over PY. What is it? QY. احنا كيف نحسب؟ How can we calculate QY? I over PY. صح؟ مظبوط؟ طب هذا minus PX على PY. طب احسبوا لي minus PX على PY. قديش PX؟ minus 50 over 10 minus 5, which is the slope of the budget line. Or اللي هو delta QY over delta QX. So the slope of the budget line can be calculated by 2 ways. Either إنه minus the price of X over price of Y, or change in the quantity of Y over the change in quantity of X. صح؟ صح. Break. Okay, let's take a break. طيب, let's go to the consumer equilibrium. Let's go to the consumer equilibrium. Using the indifference curve theory. As we mentioned, that the consumer can buy under the limited income and under the different prices, and any rational consumer will try to maximize his benefits or his utility when he consumes different bundles of goods. So let us have the following graph: quantum X, quantum Y, And let us assume that we have the following graph. IC1 IC2 and IC3. IC1, the total utility in this case, TU equals 50. TU2 equals 100. And TU3 equals 140. These are assumptions here. A, B, C, D. Draw the graph. Let's go. Okay. As we said that the budget line represents or shows the ability to the consumer to buy different bundles of goods. Right? Which means that along this budget line, the consumer spends all of his income to buy different groups of X and Y. All right? An irrational consumer will try to maximize his utility or her utility when he or she consumes or different bundles of goods. Now, we have a budget line. Along this budget line, the consumer buys or spends $100. For example, تبعنا. And he can buy how much? How many units? قلنا 4 and 20. All right? تمام? Any point lies along the budget line means that the consumer spends all of his income. All right? Any point lies along at the budget line means that the consumer spends all of his income. معنى $100 صرف $200 منهم كلهم spent. تمام؟ طيب. He has different choices. The choice الأول, he can consume at point A or B, C, or M, N, or at C, or at D, B here. صح؟ بيقدر يا بيشتري عند هان أو هان أو هان أو هان. صح؟ مظبوط ولا لا؟ He can buy. The ability to buy is either at A or B, C or B or M or N or any point along the budget line. He can buy it. He has the ability to buy it. Right? But the question is, which is better for the consumer? Point A or B or C or D? D is unattainable point. because it needs more money to get it. طيب, along this, let's do a comparison or compare point A and B. البي هيك. Which is better for the consumer? A or B? The same, صح؟ مين اللي قال the same؟ عارفة ليش؟ 100%. At A, he spends $200 to get utilities قديش؟ 50. صح؟ لأن هذه بتقع على الindifference curve. راح تعطي له 50 utils. طيب, at B here, how much is the spending here? قديش بينفق؟ برضه $200. صح؟ How much is the total utility obtained? 50. So, for the consumer, point A equals point B. Because at point A, he will spend how much? $200 to get utilities 50. At point B, he spends the same amount, $200, to get 50 utils. But what about C? At C here, he spends $200 to get how much is the utility here? 100. So C is better than A. All right? And C is better than B. صح؟ مظبوط؟ صح ولا مش صح؟ صح ولا عاه؟ So C is better than A than B. What about point D here? هو بالutility بالsatisfaction تبعه نفسه يوصل لها. To get the utilities 140, but under the limited budget, the limited income, he cannot. How can we reach it? By increasing income. إذا الانكم goes up بقدر يروح rightward, or no, the prices تنزل, price of X or price of Y. تمام? So let's come back here. So at point A, the consumer spends how much? The consumer spends 200. خلينا نعمل spending will utilities obtained. Then at A, here we're talking about the spending, the consumer spending, the consumer spending, and the utility obtains. At point A, how much is the consumer spending? $200. بافتراض انه عندنا الكونسيومر انكم equals 200 بما انه هو بيصرف هالقد. تمام؟ والبرايس اوف اكس how much was it؟ قديش كانت البرايس اوف اكس؟ كان 50 في الاكزامبل. والبرايس اوف واي 10. Okay. In this example, the consumer spends 200 at A. He spends 200 and gets how much? 50 utils. The satisfaction or total utility obtained equals 50 units. At B here, he spends 200 because this point lies along the budget line. So he spends 200, point B, and gets how much? 50. So point A equals B. So we can say that A equals B. صح? What about point C? At C, he spends $200 to get 100 utils. So point C is better than A, C is better than B. صح؟ طيب, what about point D? I don't know how much is the spending because he works under a limited income, but he will try بيسموها unattainable point. Unattainable point under the limited income. في ظل دخله المحدود ما بيقدر يوصل لها. تمام؟ طيب. So, the optimal point, the best point for the consumer, which is C, is the optimal point. بسموها هذا. So, I advise the consumer to buy at point C. تمام؟ اللي هي بتعمل consumer equilibrium. شفتوا من أول الشابتر بندور على consumer equilibrium. وين أعمل له advice to buy. I advise the consumer to buy at point C because this point performs the consumer equilibrium, or the maximum utility can be obtained at point C under the limited budget or the limited income. All right? تمام? So, the optimal point is the point at which the budget line tangent the indifference curve. Tangent تماس مش كروس, وهذا كلكم توقعوا فيها في الامتحان. أنا متأكد راح توقعوا. The most efficient point, the point that maximizes the consumer equilibrium, is the point at which the budget line tangent, هذا بتقاطع ولا بمسوا تماس؟ تماس بسموها tangency point, نقطة تماس between the budget line and the indifference curve. Not a cross, because here we have a cross. Or at the point where the slope of the budget line equals the slope of indifference curve. صح؟ هيو اعمل السلوب تبع هذا. عند هذه النقطة at this point the slope of the budget line equals the slope of indifference curve. اعمل السلوب تبع indifference curve لازم تعمليه هيك. صح؟ Once again, then the consumer equilibrium achieved at the point at which the slope, or at the tangency point, or when there is a tangency between the budget line and the indifference curve. Not a cross. Not a cross. بمعنى هاي في تقاطع، ليش ما خدناهاش؟ هذا لأنه total utility spends income كله وgets بس lower total utility. طيب برضو كمان at the point where the slope of the budget line equals the slope of indifference curve. تمام؟ طيب السؤال at this point here, at point A, slope مين أعلى من slope مين؟ Slope of the indifference curve is bigger than the slope of the budget line. صح؟ صح؟ ركز معي. خلصت. هان هيك at point A, which is steeper, which has a larger slope. الIC ولا البادجت لاين؟ الIC. إذن at point A, the slope of IC لأنه جاي vertical. IC is bigger than the slope of budget line. طيب هان at B. The slope of the budget line is bigger than the slope of indifference curve. صح؟ إذن هنا at point B the slope of the budget line is bigger than the slope of IC. صح؟ مظبوط؟ وين البوينت اللي بس عندها بيكون the slope of indifference curve equals the slope of the budget line? Point C. So it's the optimal point, the most efficient point. The point achieves the consumer equilibrium. So at point C, slope of budget line equals the slope of IC, which is the optimal point. يعطيكم العافية.